you an entrepreneur? And if so, what type of entrepreneur are you? And what are some of the most consistent qualities of an entrepreneur? We're going to talk about all three of those questions on the next episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. Hey everyone, it's Angela Mishuli, your host of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. Happy December. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast where we talk about everything business and motherhood minus the perfectionism. This year, this season, man, everybody is just feeling the pressure to do so much in such little time. So I hope you've listened to my episode about mom guilt, and I hope that helped. If you haven't, I'm going to link it in the show notes below. But I already see it kind of bubbling to the surface for myself, and my daughter has a birthday this month, so that adds a extra nice little layer of pressure. But I'm really trying to keep it at bay. But I hope that you are too, and trying to resist the urge to keep up with everybody around you who you think are doing more than you or doing it better. Just, try to focus on doing the best that you can and realizing that's enough. So that's my little spiel at the beginning of this podcast. But I've actually been feeling a calling to do this episode, and this is going to be really interesting because for the longest time, even though I'd had some side hustles over the years, I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur. So there may be some moms out there, or actually anybody who can relate to this episode. Happy to have a conversation with you. But I think we really need to be able to sometimes put a label on, oh, this is what I am. And I think it can, in the past, I've done an episode on identity. It can really help you kind of shift into a mindset and kind of a vision for yourself. If you kind of can go, oh, this is what I'm doing. This is who I am. And it can help you reach out to other people who are also like-minded, and you can find a community and, really help you begin to grow and thrive as an entrepreneur, if that's what you are. So I think one of the key elements of being an entrepreneur is that you have a business. And in order to have a business as opposed to a hobby, is that people pay you for your service or good or the solution that you provide. So I think number one, that is a really key element. And then number two, I really like to look at what other people's definitions are of things like entrepreneur. And I think entrepreneur.com is probably one of the top resources out there for business information. And entrepreneur.com defines an entrepreneur as a person who starts, organizes, and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. Rather than working as an employee, an entrepreneur runs a small business and assumes all the risk and reward of a given business venture idea or good. So I think, and I will leave a link to that below in case you're just somebody who's visual and is like, I need to see this. And one of the things that I'm just going to put an opinion out there, and it might be not popular, feel free to reach out to me and let me know your thoughts or leave a review with your thoughts. is somehow that somebody who has a side hustle, I guess you could say, or is not a full-time entrepreneur for whatever reason, is not an entrepreneur. Like, you have to be all in all the time to actually be an entrepreneur. And I wholeheartedly disagree, because I think entrepreneurs they just have a different philosophy. They really tend to think outside of the box. They tend to think differently, especially about risk. And they tend to think differently about themselves and their ideas differently than other people. And I think your philosophy and mindset sets you apart as an entrepreneur way more than how much time you may spend on a business or not. So let's talk about, again, from entrepreneurial.com. I found an article that they have that's very interesting, and they list some characteristics of entrepreneurs. And I don't think you have to have all of these, but they may be things that, as I describe them, you can begin to go, oh yeah, that's me. Or I feel pulled towards doing those things. Some of those characteristics are creativity. So do you find yourself injecting imagination and uniqueness into your business or anything that you do? Do you just kind of look at it and perceive it differently than other people and think of how it could grow and be bigger and better than maybe it is? If you're not quite an entrepreneur yet, in that you are a wantrepreneur, they call them, you're thinking about starting a business, but you haven't yet. Maybe one of the things that can help you begin to identify yourself as an entrepreneur is really that creativity, that spark where you find yourself consistently interacting with other people or other businesses or even at your own job and thinking about how it could be bigger and better and more efficient. So I think that's definitely a consistent characteristic of a lot of entrepreneurs. And part of that is just being a person with vision, where you can kind of have clarity about the direction of a project or a product or an idea, and really just kind of lead other people to see things the way you do, and kind of an instinctive leader. I know that I kind of always felt I was that type of person, and the first time that I kind of experienced that was in the second grade. And I was new to a school, and my teacher said something like, we have to nominate somebody for student government, and everybody you point to the person that you think would make the best representative of our class for student government. And everybody immediately pointed to me. And the way I remember it is that every person in the room pointed at me. It was so strange, because I was new to the school, yet everybody had kind of already identified me as a leader of the class. I don't remember why. It's just a funny memory still to me to this day. I still remember the outfit I was wearing. I don't know. And this folder I had. But anyway. So yeah, if you kind of find yourself in a situation where you're consistently leading and inspiring people, you might be an entrepreneur. So, and then a part of that leadership and vision and creativity is this kind of natural drive and an intrinsic energy. This article calls it to accomplish your goals, even though you're going to face lots of obstacles and you're not sure how you're going to figure it out, but you just have this drive and motivation to complete your mission. I can definitely identify with that. And in order to be able to work towards that vision and achieve your goals, you have to have a lot of self-discipline. And I think that this is probably the one area where most entrepreneurs struggle. I know I do myself, is self-discipline, where you're just very focused and you learn how to prioritize and systemize tasks to achieve your business goals. So, in addition to your drive and your self-discipline, this article really lists an interesting characteristic that I don't think a lot of entrepreneurs have, but I think can really set you apart, especially in the leadership role, and that is empathy and the ability to understand and kind of feel what other people are experiencing. And that can really help you understand how others see you, but more importantly, have empathy with your customer and your clients in order to be able to serve them better and therefore grow your business better as a leader, and just refining your business and your service or product. Having that empathic ability is really helpful, and luckily this is something that I think I very much have. Shout out to all of those empathic entrepreneurs out there. It's something that can most definitely really set you apart. And so that is the list of that article's entrepreneur traits. So what do you think about that? I think some of them are true, and some of them are definitely not universal. But I think many of the traits that I listed in my leadership episode, which I'll link below, also lend themselves to someone being a successful entrepreneur. So I think some other really important qualities about an entrepreneur are that you love what you do, because you're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices. You're going to have to work really hard, and you're going to have to do a lot of work blindly, not knowing exactly what's going to come of your work. So you really do need to love what you do. And then you're really going to have this sense of knowing kind of innately what it is that you want to accomplish. And the funny thing is, you have to be very flexible about how you accomplish that, or be willing to kind of evolve your visions of what your business may be. But regardless of those things, you just kind of have an idea of the direction that you want to go. So once you know your direction, you have to make a lot of smart decisions along the way. And that is another quality of successful entrepreneurs. In addition to being a smart decision maker, you need to be persistent. You have to be a good planner. You have to find your community. I hear this so often by the mompreneurs that I interview on the podcast. And they consistently say that one of the things that really helped them become a successful entrepreneur was they surrounded themselves with like-minded people in a community. And they also find ways to work smarter, not harder. And they also have a consistent practice of being grateful. It can really elevate your energy and your mindset, if you are consistently grateful and acknowledge your wins and everything that you have accomplished and where you're at along the way, and all of the good things around you, despite maybe not quite being where you want to be, because we're always reassessing our goals along the way. A consistent gratitude practice is very important as an entrepreneur. So one of the other really important qualities of a successful entrepreneur is to have the wisdom about where to seek the right knowledge and from whom. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily have that skill and need to hone in on that skill a little bit better. You can really learn where you need to, or when you need to seek out help, and then that can help you identify blind spots. And we all have blind spots. That's another thing that you learn as an entrepreneur. So bringing on somebody for maybe marketing or just maybe a mindset coach or a business coach, it's really important to identify those times and be willing to bring somebody on board to listen to and help you grow in your business. So I think that gives you a really good idea of what are some of the qualities of an entrepreneur. And so I think it's really important for us to be able to identify with entrepreneurship if we are headed down this path, because I've done an episode previously on identity, and I think once we start to identify and begin to shift our identity to being an entrepreneur, and we can look in the mirror and go, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. I think solidifying that identity and seeing yourself as an entrepreneur helps you gain your footing in your business and go down a new path and begin to attract and identify with other entrepreneurs that really can help you grow. So, what are some different types of entrepreneurs? Let's talk about that, because that is a very interesting topic. When you Google types of entrepreneurs, you're going to get lots of different results, and they kind of are a little disorganized and all over the place. So when I say what type of entrepreneur are you, I mean the philosophy that you approach towards starting and growing your business, because I think it's really important to have that in mind at the outset or at a very beginning point, because one thing that I think that entrepreneurs really struggle with is comparing themselves with other entrepreneurs or other business owners. And to really have a solid identity or work towards developing your identity as an entrepreneur is important. So you understand, this is my approach, so I don't need to, my approach is not to be aggressive towards the growth of my business. I'm taking it slow or whatnot. So let's dive into the 4 types of entrepreneurs that I'm talking about, and I'm going to link all the articles that I discuss in this episode below. So number 1 is the coasting. Opportunity comes to them or it doesn't. And this probably applies to newer entrepreneurs, especially ones who have maybe a side hustle, that perhaps their livelihood is not dependent on whether they continue to grow at a fast pace or not. They're just happy if they do it, have sales or not. It's not a driving force in their business. So the second type of entrepreneur that I want to mention is a conservative entrepreneur, in that they start their business with moderate resources and they protect their existing resources. They're very conservative how they invest the money that they make and grow in their business. like fast growth, lots of resources is not their driving philosophy or what drives their business. But on the other side of that, you have an aggressive entrepreneur that is very proactive and all in and actively seeks opportunity for growth and financing in their business. And then the fourth type of entrepreneur is an innovator and a revolutionary that fuels and grows their business through innovation. So, of course, there are other types of entrepreneurs, but I think that those are just, and maybe you'll create your own unique philosophy, and maybe it's a mix of two of those. But I think it's important to, as I said, begin to develop an idea of who you are or who you want to be as an entrepreneur, so you can begin to find a community to grow with and begin to attract like-minded people that can help you grow in your business and your mindset and your skills as an entrepreneur. It's very important. So I hope you have found this episode on thinking about, are you an entrepreneur? Is that truly the path you're going down? What are some of the characteristics of an entrepreneur and various types of an entrepreneur? I hope that discussion has been helpful to you. And I want to wrap up the episode with just mentioning for a moment, as a reminder to myself and all of the women who are listening to this episode, that we mompreneurs are definitely arising. I don't think it's a fad. I absolutely don't. We are growing into our own. We are becoming a force that we absolutely will begin to create a new identity of entrepreneurs that are balancing motherhood and business ownership and everything in between at the same time. So what's so important about that is, number one, we're a very important element to the economy. We're this injection into the economy and growth, and we can definitely have a lot of power in not only the wealth that we create for ourselves and in our businesses and the decision-making ability that comes along with that, but the other women that we get to support and employ and interact and connect with is very important, because if you ever Google an entrepreneur, you're going to come up with a list of people, and I'm gonna write that list or list those folks for you now. Number one, of the 10 greatest entrepreneurs: John D. Rockefeller, Andrew Carnegie, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Charles Merrill, Sam Walton, Charles Schwab. Not one woman on that top of the list. And honestly, I looked at Success Magazine's top 10 entrepreneurs of 2022. There's one woman on the list, and she's mentioned with her brother, Bryce and Joy Monkovich. They're a brother-sister duo who have a niche in the e-commerce industry, and that's great. But, they put a picture of a woman at the top of the article, yet none of the contents have anything really about women and female entrepreneurs. And, it's just a reminder that even in 2022, we have a lot of work to do and we have far to go, especially in the world of business and leadership. So let that be a reminder to us all that we have our own small goals that we want to achieve as entrepreneurs, but there certainly are some much bigger goals that we need to have in mind and insight that we are contributing to on a larger scale. So with that, that's this week's episode. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you so much. So I have some interviews coming up with some amazing women that definitely have impacted me just in talking to them. And I cannot wait to bring you those interviews. If you would like to connect with me on Instagram, you can reach out to me at angela.mashulli. And that's MASCIULLI. And again, I'll leave links in the show notes below. And if this episode resonated with you, you found it helpful, please leave a review. It helps other people find the show. And I create content on my own. And that's really the only way, unless somebody reaches out or leaves a review to let me know that what I'm creating, what I'm doing is resonating. So it's so important. It means so much to me. And I would be happy to give you a shout out. That would be awesome. So thank you so much again. I hope your December is going well. And I cannot wait to talk to you on the next episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. Have a great one. Bye.